Thank you. So it's not so grand to be part of the grand old party these days. Disunity rules thanks to Donald Trump. But Mr. Trump certainly isn't lying down. As we told you at the top of the show, this email is making the rounds in the state of Georgia. It urges Trump supporters to become delegates at the convention. And yes, it is complete with instructions. There it is. To discuss, I'm joined by CNN political commentator and Donald Trump supporter Kayleigh McEnany and the executive director of the Independent Women's Forum, Sabrina Schaefer. Welcome to both of you.
Thanks, Carol.
Thanks to both of you for being here this morning. Sabrina, Mr. Trump's campaign manager, Corey Lewandowski, signed up. He will be a delegate at the Republican convention. Trump seems to be covering all bases. So why continue to fight if you're a Republican who does not like Mr. Trump?
Well, look, Carol, I mean, there is not exactly a happily ever after storyline that is going to unfold come this summer at the convention. I think one of the problems is that the Republican Party is going through some growing pains, to say the least, and there's going to be people who are very unhappy. And I think the challenge now is going to be, how can we both sort of salvage the party and ensure that there's a lot of people who don't feel sort of disenfranchised. And that's a challenge for whether Trump is the nominee or whether someone else is able to sort of carry it out. There are going to be a lot of frustrated, angry, and despondent voters out there.
Well, Kayleigh, it seems like this sort of hysteria has set in, though. Some Republicans are even talking about voting for Hillary Clinton. Listen to what Cisco's CEO, a Republican, told Poppy Harlow.
I also think Hillary's a great candidate on the Democratic side. I think they both...
You're a Republican saying Hillary's a great candidate.
I know, isn't that shocking? I hope my dad's not watching.
You're not behind the GOP frontrunner right now, Donald Trump, a businessman like you.
Well, I think some of his policies are very good. I just think that what we need someone who will bring the country together.
Okay, so Kayleigh, he's a fellow Republican. He's a business leader. That should be Trump's home turf. So what happened?
Look, the narrative of I'll never vote for Trump is one being perpetuated by the donor class, by the political class, by the establishment. It's not one that really rings true among the people. The fact is we are having record turnout in the Republican Party, 60% up. Meanwhile, the Democrat turnout is down. Look at Ohio. It is astonishing to find that Donald Trump edged out Hillary Clinton in the number of voters by 50,000 people in a four-way race, in a race where he got second place. The fact is Donald Trump is expanding the party. He's bringing new people in. The establishment, I agree with what was said yesterday by a Trump supporter, is insane to not embrace this movement and instead to try to thwart it.
Still, there are kind of warning signs on the horizon, Sabrina. According to a Reuters Ipsos poll, it shows half of American women have an unfavorable view of Trump. Mr. Trump is again trolling Megyn Kelly. He's calling her crazy this time. So Sabrina, are Republicans who dislike Trump right when they say that Hillary Clinton could beat Donald Trump?
Well, I think that Trump has a real shot at beating Hillary Clinton. And while I find many of Trump's comments toward women disgusting, I am the head of a women's organization, there are plenty of women out there who support him, and they support him strongly. So I think that we have to be careful sort of not to think that because he's made some sort of crass comments that is turning him off to women. One thing, though, to keep in mind is that Republicans are also thinking about those down ballot races. There are a lot of Senate races, and it's going to put a lot of people in an awkward position. If you are an establishment candidate, meaning if you are somebody who sort of considers themselves mainstream Republican and your nominee is Trump, it is going to require you answering all sorts of questions that a lot of senators and potential candidates are not really comfortable doing. And so I think that's where some of this talk about a third party candidate is coming from, because how can Republicans ensure that they don't lose the Senate?
Okay, along those lines, Kayleigh, Mr. Trump has endorsements from Ben Carson, Chris Christie, Sarah Palin, Joe Arpaio, and with the exception of Chris Christie, Mr. Trump seems to be only appealing to one side of the Republican base. Is that a concern?
No, it's not a concern to me, because we did hear Paul Ryan yesterday say, hey, I'm going to support the nominee. I think you're going to see more of that. You'll see establishment folks coming out for Donald Trump. That's the only choice. So let's be very clear here. The choice is support Donald Trump, and I think he will beat Hillary Clinton, or go to a brokered convention, which will ensure that Hillary Clinton wins. We need to unify. Donald Trump has extended his hand. He's put forth an overture to the other side, and it's time for the establishment to take a step forward.
All right, I have to leave it there.
Trump supporters feel that way, but I also realize, sort of in talking to lots and lots of people, the uncertainty factor that you get with Trump is enough to keep a lot of people home, and that's something that we have to sort of talk about as conservatives. Is Is it better to know what you're getting and it's sort of maybe the evil one, as some Republicans would see Hillary Clinton, or is it better to support the great unknown, which you get with Donald Trump?
All right, I have to leave it there. Sabrina Schaefer, Kayleigh McEnany, thanks to both of you.
Thanks.